Good afternoon, everyone. I'm David Talbot, Managing Director and Head of Research here at Red Cloud Securities. Our next presenter is Jim McDonald. He's President and CEO of Kootenay Silver. Now, Kootenay is developing several major silver projects in Chihuahua, Sonora, and Sinaloa, Mexico. So, Jim, you've got the next 15 minutes, and then we'll have a 5-minute Q&A session after that. So good luck. Take it away.
Hey, David, thank you. Let's get with it here. So, silver in Mexico, as Kootenay Silver has been focused there for some time. We've been very successful in making a number of discoveries. We've got two resource estimates out on two of those discoveries so far. And in the last 2 years, we've been drilling two new projects that are both classic high-grade Mexican vein type properties, and to some pretty tremendous success particularly on the Columba project, which we're going to focus on today. So we'll be making some forward-looking statements here, and please be aware of that. So a high level, Kootenay Silver offers a great investment vehicle into exposure into silver because of our leverage to the silver price due to the large resource base we have in the two resources that we have 43-101 reports on. You can see the numbers there, 136 million silver equivalent ounces in the M&I and another 35 million in the inferred category. Those are on the Promontorio and La Ciguera properties. The work we've been doing has been focused, as I've said, on the high-grade projects, Columba and Coppolito. We'll be entering the fourth drill program this year shortly in Columba, and we've been having some tremendous success there that we'll touch on more as we go along in the presentation. And then our resource projects at Promontorio, which has actually two discoveries on it, one with a resource called Promontorio, and then of course the La Negra discovery, which we have last year completed a geologic model on in preparation of resource estimate there. And then the La Ciguera project, which is in Chihuahua state in the famous Parel district. We've done a rigorous remodeling of the geology there with the idea that it will result in a better grade resource as it stands. And in addition to all of this, we've got work ongoing at our JV project, Cervantes, in also in Sonora State, which is actually a gold oxide project that's been getting some excellent drill results here recently. The capital structure you can see here for yourselves. You can read the numbers. Market caps around 67 million here. Key shareholders: Eric Sprott, Condire, which is a fund out of Texas, the management directors, and then a lot of institutional holdings. And then majors who have invested in the past because of our exploration success include Coeur Mining, who got interested because of the La Ciguera discovery, Agnico Eagle, who came in because of the original Promontorio discovery, and then Pan American invested because of the La Negra discovery on the Promontorio property. And moving along here, board and management team, I won't get into too much detail here. The point is that particularly for a junior company, we have a lot of depth on our board and management. The experience goes right from the grassroots exploration, boot and hammer phase, all the way to mine building, mine operation, and then the financing of every one of those stages. So our main lead projects here are located primarily in northern Mexico. You can see here Columba, La Ciguera, along that famous Sierra Madre trend. That red line's depicting that trend. And then to the left, you see in Sonora State, you see the Promontorio La Negra project. And then a little to the south of that is Coppolito, which sits in Sinaloa State. So we'll get into talking about Columba here. So the Columba project, classic high-grade vein system. When we acquired the option for 100% on this project, there'd been no work done here in 35 years. Two periods of historic work here on a small scale in the early 1900s, and then around 1960 again. The shaft you see in the picture here was put down in the 1910 period and went down 200 meters and it was 6 levels put off of it. Historic records, which are pretty scant, indicated some pretty spectacular grades there, which got us interested in the project. So once we acquired the option, we went in and started drilling that historic F vein right away and confirmed those grades. And you can see here, we're listing a lot of different intercepts in a number of different veins here, just to drive home the point that, hey, this isn't a one-hole wonder. There are numerous veins here with multiple high-grade hits. So the prospects of developing a significantly sized high-grade resource here are looking really, really good. Here's a plan map, cartoon map of those veins exposed as we originally walked into the property. And now every year we're expanding that footprint, finding more veins, and this thing keeps growing. And now an interesting point I want to make here is that the erosional level here, this thing has been barely being eroded. So it's just gotten into the top productive part of the veins in this central area, which is a basin in the mountains. So this dark gray line is a elevation of 18-20 meters. And when you get below that, you're starting to pick up your veins. When you're above that, the veins virtually disappear, but they're underneath you at a deeper level. So whatever was deposited here is still there. And we're showing here a number of highlights again, high grade intercepts in all these different areas, the F vein, the D vein, some spectacular intercepts there, 4.6 meters and nearly 1,200 grams, for example. B vein, very similar again. This JZ area looks like a breccia controlled thing. And then these areas off to the upper right is what we call the East Block, which is a faulted extension of the entire system. And so moving along here is just a picture of a model of the F vein in red and a hang wall vein in green that doesn't even come to surface. So that was a blind discovery. We've got over 40 holes in this F vein here now, spanning 700 meters of strike length down to 200-meter depth. So, and very consistent hits along it. This cross section just is to illustrate the continuity. On the right-hand side there, what you're seeing is the F vein and two different hits that are over 100 meters apart. So you can see nice consistency and the real nice high grade in it. And then the hang wall vein on the left-hand side, where over 800 grams over 2 meters in that case. So there's a resource there to be drilled to find and drilled off. The JZ area, more complex, this breccia. Our best hole actually came from this zone, and that was hole 103 at 6 meters over 2,000 gram per ton silver. And then when we move into the B vein, we had a great hole there at depth, almost 1,200 grams silver over 4.6 meters. Now, what I want to point out here is at surface, that vein has almost no silver, like 10, 15 grams, if you're lucky. But when you get down below about a 1,700 meter elevation, which is the kind of the middle of that image, you start to pick up your grade and continuity and strength of vein. And then that wonderful hit in hole 82. Similarly, the D vein, which sits to the west of the B vein, a few hundred meters, at surface, we get a little bit better values showing up, but then you can see here in this cross section, this shallow hole got up to almost 200 grams. And then this deeper hole here, hole 110, one of the best holes we've drilled to date, almost 18 meters of over 650 grams per ton. And there was about 6 meters of over 900 grams within that same hole. So that D vein is showing up some excellent widths and really good grades. Very excited about the prospects of that particular vein. And here's just a picture of one of the outcrops of the vein and some breccia from the JZ zone. Now, what's going to happen here this year is we're coming in the next phase of drilling, which will start in the next several weeks here, is going to be a 15,000 meter program, 70 holes. To date, we got 113 holes into it. So these holes are going to go a long way in kind of defining the size of some of these zones, particularly the B and D vein areas in that JZ trap zone. We already got a significant number of holes in the F vein, but some of the upcoming drilling will to fill some large gaps in the F vein and also start going to depth. At Coppolito, a lot of real nice high grade hits there, polymetallic in this case. This is a new discovery by us. We made a couple years ago. As far as we can tell, it had never been drilled before. There's some small scale artisanal type mining had occurred here. Multiple veins on the project. It's got high grade silver, gold, and lead zinc. And you can see here in this image, some of the drill intercepts over 1,200 grams per ton silver. We're getting up to 9 grams per ton in gold, 13% combined lead zinc. So a little bit different than Columba, and it's got great potential here. Some of the cross sections showing the intercepts. Now, what separates Columba and Coppolito, and why we're focusing on Columba, is that Columba, we've got a number of areas where we see mineralized shoots developed, where we got continuity and size, continuity of grade and width and size potential there. At Coppolito, we see a lot of really great hits. We see good wide intercepts, but we also see a lot of variability as we go along strike, where the intercepts narrow, they fatten, they narrow. So at Coppolito, it's a question of finding those zones that have got size, width, and grade coming together. And due to the high sulfide content here, the next step will be a geophysical program that ought to be able to identify those kind of zones if they indeed exist there. So there's just a nice image. Here is the vein outcrop, and Chief Geologist Luis Moya for scale. Then our resource projects, very quickly here. La Ceguera, big resource in a famous district. This is a pit-constrained resource. It's a long trend from the Santa Barbara, San Francisco de Oro district to the south. We've got the northern 20-kilometer extent of that district in the claim block, and that historic area has produced over 500 million ounces of silver. So this area is the kind of geology where once you're in production, you just keep replacing your ore reserves for decades to come. And what we're working on here is building a new geologic model. The old resource model shown in grade. Our new geologic model is in the colored blocks here, and we're finding the silver seems to be most constrained in this geology here. So we think the current resource has smeared the grade, and that the grade may be indeed higher, which could really have a positive impact on the economics here. And then similarly, Promontorio, our La Negra discovery there, we've done a geologic model. We're preparing it for our maiden resource. And these are the things that are in the pipeline for this year, in addition to the work and drill results that come out at the gold oxide project and our JV at Cervantes. And I think that's running us at to the end of our time here. And I just want to close out why invest in Kootenay Silver. Well, quality silver assets in our large resource space give you an excellent leverage just to the silver price. And plus, we've got this explosive growth potential in adding ounces on our particularly on our high grade Columba discovery. And there's going to be a big drill program going on there this year, which will provide a lot of catalysts for for the year. So I think maybe we've got some time for a few questions.
Yeah, our timing is great, Jim. Thank you very much. So everybody put in your questions and we'll get to as many as we can. Jim, right now you've got several large properties, projects. How do you go about prioritizing budgets and exploration focus?
It's evaluated primarily on where we think a dollar spent is going to have the best chance of adding value. And right now that's the Columba project because of the high grade, the very clear targets there that look like they're going to turn into resources. And that's the kind of property where we think we're going to add the most value most quickly. Take our La Ceguera project, for example, got a large resource defined within an open pit at a measured indicated grade at 85 grams silver, and the silver price has been in the last several months down around 22, 24. It's not quite there, so adding ounces there just doesn't quite have the impact. But if we're successful in increasing the grade there with the new model, that'll make a difference. Also, if the silver price gets going into an extended bull run here, and like we saw before, we had sustained prices over $30 silver for a long time, then that project becomes something different. We reevaluate that under those conditions. So we're looking at the market itself, and we're looking at the project.
Right. Okay. Now the Colombo, I believe it's what, 10 kilometers of strike extent. Is that entirely on your property? And do you think you can essentially find clusters of high grade veins along that entire trend, or are they going to be a little bit more localized?
Well, yeah, Columba it's a classic vein swarm there. So there's numerous veins, and every year we're finding more veins and more extension to those veins. Over the past year, we added an application for a very large claim surrounding the whole block at 10,000 hectares. And so what we're seeing, like on the F vein, for example, there's a mineralized zone there that's pretty consistent over about a 700-meter strike length, which is a pretty good size in a vein, and open to depth down to 200-meter length. On the D vein, which is to the south, we have about 200 meters of strike defined so far, but only around 8 holes there. And we're seeing wider zones and higher grades, in fact. So it'll be a case of, all these veins will have different zones within them where we hope to be finding resources, but that's expectation. And so far, that's kind of what we're seeing. The F vein, there's quite a large zone there. D vein, we can see there's something there. We need to drill to find it. Similarly, in the B vein, and that's pretty classic of vein systems. You'll have multiple veins, and you'll have a 1, 2, 3, 4 veins that really produce a lot of tonnage and a lot of ounces, and then quite a number more veins that will have smaller zones and that add up into something pretty significant. Is what we're hoping. We have, what we're seeing so far is we have enough zones there coming together, that we've hit in drilling so far to think that, we've got a good shot here at 100 million ounces. And the real exciting kind of blue sky to mention is that it's barely eroded. So we just, with the exposure we're seeing, is just a little top of the whole system. Whatever was deposited there is still there because it's not really eroded. So the thing could be a whole bunch bigger than it appears to be so far, because as you go out laterally, it's blind to surface. You just don't know. And the geologic setting is such as that it could be something quite a bit bigger than we're thinking right now. So that's kind of a blue sky arm wave on it, but geologically that's sound and it's reasonable.